Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It depends on what time are you viewing, you're seeing this recorded lecture for this week. And I hope you're safe and I hope you're all free from COVID-19. And I hope na you are in a positive vibe as you watch and view this video. So before we start, I would just like to address some of the questions that you have raised in our previous lecture. First question um, is it necessary for you to have an editing skill so you can pass my subject? And can you tell me, sir, what we will be expecting more for this topic? And at the same time, uh, ayun, same with, okay, your concern is about editing skills, etc., etc. So to give you my answer, no, it's not really necessary for you to acquire the editing skills needed for you to pass my subject, for you to pass this subject. This is only a quick overview and a quick na review about and a quick uh, lecture na lang din about what are you going to undergo no as you go along in your curriculum in development communication. It's not necessary, it's not really necessary for this subject. In this subject, expect that you will be writing more because this is intro to multimedia writing. I'm just introducing to you the multimedia, the different multimedia platforms, at the same time, the different attributes before I go on with the framing of the story, with writing for radio, writing for TV, and writing for other multimedia platforms. So I hope that I was able to address your question. Let us start our lecture for today. Let me just share my screen no, before I proceed. Okay, I believe. Ayun. Share screen. Ayun. Once again, good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everyone. This is Jerry Luis Verbana, your professor for Introduction to Multimedia Writing, Instructor Development Communication Department, Institute of Agriculture and Related Sciences, Davao del Sur State College. So for today, before I proceed with a framing of story, before I proceed with writing for radio, writing for TV, writing for newspapers, I will be discussing to you and I will enlighten you about what media literacy is and how important being media literate is. So to proceed and to start with, what is media literacy? Because when we say media literacy, it is something that increases our ability to exercise control over the vast array of messages we encounter through through what? Through daily media exposure. Why is it important? Because media literacy it it um, it is the ability, or it gives us the ability to identify different types of media and understand the messages they're sending. For example, social media, no? Radio, TV, the media that I was able to introduce to you on our very first meeting for this semester. So media literacy class, it refers to the ability to understand mass media messages and create media messages no matter what kind it is. It is the ability to what? To access, to analyze, to evaluate, and to create media messages of all kinds, of different kinds. Media literacy increases our ability to exercise control over the vast array of messages we encounter through daily media exposure. So we need to be exposed we're actually exposed to these different media platforms. And what we need to do is to be educated, to be literate on how to use these multimedia platforms. Media literacy, moreover, is the ability to identify different types of media and understand the messages they are sending. Media literacy focuses on adapting to our changing world rather than ignoring those changes and denying that those changes are happening. So we recognize that changes are happening. No, there are inevitable changes that are happening, not only outside the world or in the real world, but also in the world of media and the world of multimedia. Multimedia or media literacy, it is a set of perspectives that we actively use to expose ourselves to the mass media to interpret the meaning of the messages we encounter, the messages of the posts that we do online, no? The messages of the movies, of the teleseries that we watch in our television and in cinemas, diba? So why increase media literacy? Why do we need to be media literate? Why do we need to educate ourselves about these media platforms, about media in general? First and foremost, we need to recognize that growth is accelerating. What do we mean by this? There is a high degree of exposure. No, day by day we grow. Day by day there is a inevitable na addition in media information, online or offline. Next. Okay. Keeping up. We need to keep up, di ba? Every day nagadungag ang information, every day na yung mga bagong mga gipangbuhat ang ato ang resident na mga scientists, ang resident na mga science experts, for example. We need to keep up in order for us to be updated, in order for us to move forward. We need to update ourselves. We need to keep up to the trends. Kumbaga. Next. Growth is accelerating. When we say growth is accelerating, we mean that by Silver 2012, according to him, it is estimated that it now takes only 2 years for the total amount of information to double. If at the moment we have around 10 million amount of information, by 2 years from now, we will have more or less 20 million amount of information. Imagine, yung ana kapaspas, mag-double ang information. And if we don't adapt, we will be left behind. We need to adapt. We need to be media literate. We need to educate ourselves. Second, there is a high degree of exposure. So when we say there are types of exposure, first is indirect exposure. So when we say indirect exposure, it is when we think about some element in the media message when we are not being able to expose, or we are not able to expose to it at the time. When we just think about it, we just talk about it to our friends without even being able to expose to this information at that time. Example, talking about messages with friends, diba? Thinking about your type of songs, thinking about your crush, for example, or making judgments towards your friends that the media have conditioned, that the media have preconditions in our minds and in the society in general. High degree of exposure. Second type, direct exposure. On contrary to indirect exposure is when we perceive a media message firsthand, kita mismo. For example, when we listen to songs, mga kanta, di ba? When we dance to TikTok videos, when we watch videos, when we surf the web. And moving forward, anchored in media literacy is what we call sensationalism. Asa man mosulod si sensationalism diri sir? Sensationalism class is a type of editorial tactic in mass media wherein events and topics in news stories are selected and worded to excite the greatest number of readers and viewers. Now, this style of news report encourages biased impressions of events rather than neutrality, rather than conflict-sensitive journalism, and may cause a manipulation to the truth of a story. When we say sensationalism, we say journalists, some journalists, I'm not saying that all journalists, some journalists sensationalize story. They cherry-pick issues to focus on, to incite viewers, to catch the attention of the audience, of the general public, instead of actually being not necessarily neutral, but instead of being critical, about the news story, about the event, and about a particular situation. And it costs what? It was manipulation to the truth of the story. Because when there is sensationalism, or when an event or a circumstance is sensationalized, no, there is what we call, only one side of truth is presented. So there is what manipulation of the story. There is a manipulation of truth in the story, a new story. What are the three building blocks of media literacy? How is it connected to sensationalism? And how is it important to media literacy, and for the general public to be media literate? First is personal locus. There are three building blocks of media literacy. Personal locus is the first. What is this all about? Second is knowledge structures. Third is skills. Personal locus. When we say personal locus, it is a term that refers to the place in a person's mind. Yes, yes. Term that refers to the place in a person's mind where decisions get made about information processing tasks. It is a center of source class, no, as of kanang activities or power, locus of control, kumbaga. Goals shape in personal locus, goals shape the information processing task by determining what gets filtered and what gets ignored. The stronger your drives for information are, the more effort you will expend or expand to attain your what? To attain your goals. So when your locus is weak, on the other hand, you will default to media control. You will be controlled by the media, where you allow the media to exercise a high degree of control over exposures and information processing. So you have to what? You have to set a center of source for yourself, activities of power, and to have that control, to have that personal locus. The more you know about your personal locus and the more you make conscious decision to shape it, the more you can control the process of media influence on you. You don't need to necessarily absorb everything that the media has to offer. You have to think for yourself. So that you have to think personally, is it really value adding? Is it really the truth? It's just the one side of the truth that they are presenting? Conscious mode. When we say conscious mode, it is when you are aware of options and can exercise tour will in making decision. And you're actually in control of the information processing and meaning making. The locus is in the unconscious mode. On the other hand, when we follow the default model and are in state of automaticity, diba? We just follow what the media feeds to us. That is what unconscious mode is all about. Unconscious mode is the decision made outside your awareness and control. You don't necessarily think about it. You don't need to contemplate about it. You just decide based on what the media is telling to you. What the media is feeding you. The media exert their most powerful effect when you are on your unconscious mode and when you're not using your personal locus. In general, the process of media literacy requires you to fully engage your personal locus in bursts, where you examine things, no, you are critical about things that you usually take for granted. You gain new insights and then use those insights to reprogram your mental code. In general and in short, no, to cut the story short, you think, diba? You think before you click, you think before you say something, you think before you impart something. Knowledge structures. Structures rather. Knowledge structures are the following. These are sets of organized information in your memory, and it does not occur spontaneously because they must be constructed with care and precision. At the same time, these help us see the patterns. We use these patterns as maps to tell us where to get information and how is this information valuable to the problem that we are where we aim to solve. And information is the essential ingredient in knowledge structures. Why? Because it is important. As simple as that. It is important because we need to be informed. We need to be updated all the time. But not all information, take note that not all information is equally useful to building a knowledge structure. Some information is rather superficial. Yung sinabi ko kanina, di ba? Kung ano lang pinifeed sa inyo, it's superficial. Some are false. Some are actually fake news. Some information is superficial, such as the names of television shows or the melodies of popular music. It's not true because no, television shows lang naman yan, di ba? Popular music lang naman yan. It does not necessarily need to happen in the real life situation. Information, as what I have said earlier, is the essential ingredient in knowledge structure. But not all information is useful because some are superficial. Low level of media literacy. So, low level of media literacy only answers the question what? Diba? Unsa? Unsa di ang chismis? Diba? Unsa di ang chismis all about? When we have a very low level of media literacy, we only care about the what. When we have a high level of media literacy, on the other hand, we also answer the question how and why. Ngano, di ba? Nganong ing ana? Nganong ing ana man bay, di ba? Paunsa to nila gibuhat bay. Ngano di ay bay? Diba? We don't just cater the question unsa, but we also try to answer the questions ngano and paunsa, di ba? Low level example, knowledge about the TV shows, songs, titles, names. High level, for example, how did they come up? No? How did these people come up with such a beautiful na masterpiece? Next, information is a piecemeal and this is information versus knowledge. Sorry. We're going to try to compare what information is, what knowledge is, and how are these two terms different from each other. When we say information, it is a piecemeal and transitory. When we say knowledge, it requires structure to provide the context and thereby exhibit meaning. Knowledge, class, remember, knowledge is in the mind. Information is the one that being processed by the mind. Okay? Once again, knowledge is in the mind. Information is the one that is being processed in the mind or by the mind. Take note, the characteristic of higher media literacy is the ability to transform into knowledge structures and the willingness to exercise that ability, the willingness to think, the willingness to be critical. Few terms related to the idea of information: message, factual information, and social information. I'm going to discuss this one by one. When we say message, these are instruments that deliver information to us. No? Ganitong unsa atong kailangan mahibaw-an. Message, simple as that. I think it is elementary for us to know what message is. The information is the context of those messages, and it can be delivered through computers a lot of ways. No? Smartphones, television, CDs, etc., etc. Messages are composed of two kinds of information. One is factual and one is social. What is factual, class? Factual is when something raw, unprocessed, and context-free. It is generic kumbaga. Example, when you watch news such as Barack Obama was re-elected to the office of the President of the United States in the fall of 2012, and it contains facts such as names, dates, titles, definitions of terms, formula list, generic siya. More siyang news kumbaga, di ba? Because it contains lots of facts. Social information, on the other hand, it is composed of accepted beliefs that cannot be verified by authorities in the same way as factual information. Social information composed of lessons that people learn from observing social interactions. Kaganiha is composed of facts, no? Names, titles, dates, definitions of terms, the actual events mismo. But social information, it is derived from the personal observations of a person from social interactions. Example, guidelines we learn on how to dress, how to do TikTok videos, how to talk, how to act to be considered attractive, smart, athletic, hip, and so forth. Diba? How to become a dean's lister, how to become a president's lister, how to balance work and life. Mahingana. This is not to say that social information is less valuable or less real to people. This is just to say that social information is not necessarily factual because it is derived from different social interactions, from different beliefs, accepted beliefs set by the society. So I guess that's it for today. I hope that you were able to learn something from our lecture. And if you have questions, please comment down below. Kung asa man nila ako i-post sa Facebook ba karon or sa atong YouTube channel. Please comment your questions so I can address them by next meeting. So next meeting, Tuesday, you will have a quiz, an activity. Please study ahead of time. Study the previous PowerPoints that I was and the previous recorded lectures that we had so that you can answer the quiz and online activity properly. And by next week, hopefully, we could start now with framing of story, with writing with radio, TV, newspapers, and other stuff, so that we can appreciate the subject very well. I'm really excited about the things ahead, the things that we are about to do, and I hope that you are also excited about all of these and the things that I have prepared for the class. So once again, if you have questions, feel free to comment down below. At the same time, if you have concerns, feel free to message your class leader, si Jason. And as we move forward, I hope that you are as eager as me. No? We are all trying our best to adjust in the new normal of online learning. And I too, am still adjusting. And I hope you are also trying your best to cooperate and to learn. No? It is not just my effort class as your professor. It is also a shared effort of you, my students. But don't you worry, I will not be hard on you. I will, but at the same time, I will also not be complacent, on everyone. Just give and take lang yan. You try to cooperate. I try to teach you and try to cooperate, with the things that I have to offer for this class. So that's it for today. I hope that you were able to learn something from me and from my recorded lecture for today. And I hope to see you next week. No? Thursday siguro or Tuesday, we'll just inform the class kung kano sa. And I hope you're safe and I hope you're good and stay safe and as always, happy learning. Salamat class.